Coach Little here to talk a little indoor track and field. Track and field season officially started where teams can begin mandatory practices on December 1st. So excited to be back. Just on a personal note, I'd say as most people watching this know, I gave up cross country, stepped away from that program this year after 14 years. So, it just got to a point where with coaching cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track, and there's a lot of coaches that do it and have done it for a long time, but between those 3 seasons, that's about 45 weeks a year out of 52, and that's quite the grind. So, we brought track in 2015, and then we brought indoor track in maybe 5 years later. So for the last several years, it's kind of been almost constant with the training and the practice schedules. So between that and between taking on some additional responsibility and additional roles with the school district, I thought it was a good time to step away from that, but wasn't ready to give up coaching altogether. And I obviously decided to remain as the track coach. And typically once track season ended, I had about 6 weeks off before cross country started up. So I had about a 6 week break. Well, from the time outdoor track season ended till now, starting indoor, I've had 6 months. So from the coaching side of things, I feel like I'm very refreshed and I'm really re-energized and ready to get this season underway and excited to get back to some things and working with our student athletes on a regular basis. Excited that we've got some growth for the indoor track program. Last year we had three athletes that did indoor track, and this year it looks like we're going to probably at least should double that. So always good to see growth. For Augusta, we've always limited indoor track and field to grades 9 through 12. This year we opened it up to 8th grade. We've had some 8th graders who have ran track for me for the last 3 or 4 years since either their 5th or 6th grade year. Now they're 8th graders, so they're pretty invested and interested. And then maybe a couple others that ran cross country, and maybe it was their first time doing that this fall. And obviously now they've come over to the track side. So excited for the growth of numbers, but also excited that we've got some younger interest in the program because we've not had a lot of high school interest the last couple of years, and obviously with the seniors that we've graduated, Nolan and Grayson with cross country last year, Grayson from track, last year, the numbers have kind of decreased at the older level, and I'm happy to see that we've got some, like I said, interest there at the younger levels coming up. So, talk a little bit about practices that, like I said, got underway. We started on Tuesday, actually. Not sure how great it was that our first practice was on a snow day. Makes things a little challenging, but we, of course, practiced in the afternoon. The roads were pretty good by then, but we practiced around 3 days a week. Starting off, I've always started off indoor a little easier. In outdoor track, we're going 5 days a week. But it's a long season, right? Like if you're in indoor and outdoor track, you're starting now and you're going through May. That's a long time. So I've always sort of had the mindset you don't need to jump right in at 5 days a week. It's a long 5 or 6 months. So start off usually 3 days a week in December, and then we'll jump up to 4 days a week usually after Christmas break. But we're probably only about 6 weeks from our first race, which may seem still like a long time, but in running, that's not really the case. You need to practice pretty much a solid 6 weeks, especially for distance runners, before you get out there and do a distance race. But normally this time of year when we start early December, I think the average temperature for our area is 46 or 47 degrees. And we've been stuck, it feels like in a tundra here. Can't hardly get above freezing lately. Barely get above 32. So that makes things challenging. Now don't get me wrong. I know plenty of runners who run when it's this cold all the time. I remember that cold snap we had a couple years ago where it was sub-zero for a few days. And I saw videos of runners around the state, especially distance runners, out running. You layer up, as long as you're, smart about it, it's certainly fine to run in those temperatures and it's safe. But I've just never been a big fan of when it gets below 36, 37 degrees. I usually will keep us inside. Now, if it's above 36 or 37, we're probably going to be outside. But like I said, so between combination of the cold weather, got snow on the ground, the roads and sidewalks are a little wet. Unlike school like Mason County, we don't have an indoor track facility to practice in. Unlike some bigger schools, I've been at schools in the past, not as a coach, but just as a teacher or substitute or student teacher, where their indoor track teams in the winter would practice in the school building, run around the school because they had these long hallways that may be interconnected to make like a square. Not ideal by any means, but it's an option. And again, just the way our school's constructed, we don't have that option. Thankfully, we do have some treadmills in the fitness center, in the weight room that we can use, and we rely on those a lot in the cold winter months. And when it's snowy and icy outside, it is, distance runner can do most of their workouts on the treadmill. Sprinters, it's a little more challenging. You can't really sprint on a treadmill. You can do some up-tempo work, but not the kinds of things that they really need to be doing. So it is nice to have the treadmills, but there are challenges, sort of restrictions with them, and a lot of times, I'll be honest, our distance runners don't like to run on the treadmill for long. Distance runners are running longer distances, and it's pretty boring just to sit there and run on the treadmill. So a lot of them don't like it, but a lot of times we'll give an athlete the option if it's colder, and I'm not going to make the whole team run outside if they want to. Sometimes that's an option for them. So like today. Today was pretty chilly, but a couple of them convinced me, and we actually took the team outside. We did our team stretches outside, which was probably only 6 or 7 minutes. And then the sprinters did a little bit of just a tiny bit of sprint work outside, probably 4 or 5 minutes worth of sprint work. Everything else was optional to be outside. We went inside for the rest of the day, but again, I had 2 distance runners, didn't want to run their miles on the treadmill today. I think they end up running between 2 and 3 miles, and just didn't want to do it on the treadmill. So I let them go outside, and certainly, like I said, it's not going to hurt them. But if you see it, 30 degrees and kids outside running, a good chance that they've asked to do that. That's not something that I require. I know we have some folks at school that will give me some good-natured ribbing about that, having the kids outside in certain conditions. But that is the life of a runner or of a track and field athlete, dealing with those different weather conditions. When you're student athletes are preparing to come to practice, I always tell them, be prepared with what you're going to wear, right? Be prepared and have sweats and maybe a sweatshirt or a hoodie in case we're outside, maybe even gloves and a toboggan. Sometimes your body warms up when you run outside. You don't maybe need to have like the heavy coat on. You might wear a hoodie. Some people wear t-shirts, but your extremities are need covering a lot of times. And some athletes, that was noticed today. So a thin pair of gloves at least is helpful, but also they should be prepared. I know it's winter, but if we're going to practice in the weight room, it's going to be warmer. So they want to have shorts and a t-shirt. So really they need to come to practice prepared to practice outside where it's cold or indoors where it's a little bit warmer. I wanted to touch on training expectations. This time of year, as I mentioned, we do only practice 3 days a week, and that means the trade-off is they need to do some training on their own. And that's something that I tell them, very specifically, you need to do this on this day. That's really important to them seeing progress. And it's really important for our distance runners because right now they're trying to accumulate mileage. All right, we're starting a lot of our distance runners low, around 10 miles because they're younger, some of them are newer, and they're going to add mileage every week. So it's important to stay on track that they get that mileage in. And with only practicing 3 days a week, they've got to do some work outside of practice. So I don't send that to parents, but I send it to students in their Parent Square or Student Square app. So if parents want to see that and they want to say, hey, are you supposed to be doing something today? Just ask them to see their messages, and you can check out the message from me in Parent Square, and if I've given them a workout to do. Wanted to touch on the meet schedule. It is the indoor meet schedule is still in development. I've got some tentative dates down on the calendar, but I'm still working on it, seeing how some things play out, seeing if they add any potential meet options. I will tell you that for indoor, all meets take place on either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Um, there's not weekday meets, at least in this area, for indoor. So um, there are only 4 venues that we go to for indoor meets because there's not a lot of indoor facilities. Obviously, the closest one is Mason County. We'll go to Maysville, I think, maybe 3 times this year for indoor meets because, like I said, it is the closest. Cincinnati has an indoor facility as well. I will mention all the Mason County meets are on Saturdays. All the Cincinnati meets are on Fridays. I'm not sure if we're going to make it to a Cincinnati meet, but it's a nice little facility, not too far away. But all those are on Friday nights. Center College in Danville has a facility. It's a really nice facility. It's pretty new, but I don't know if it's gonna work out with our schedule to get down there any. And then Louisville has a really nice facility. Louisville and Center are about the same distance. It's about 2 hours and 15 minutes or so to both Louisville from Augusta and from Augusta to Danville. So either way we go, if we were to go to one of those, it's about the same distance. The difference with Louisville is, well, that's where the state championship is held. So the state championship is the one meet that would not be held on the weekend. It's usually during the week. However, you have to qualify for the state championship. So unless you're pretty high level, that would be the only athletes who would be competing at the state championship, during the week. It's the first week usually of March. And that's a weekday meet. But Louisville has meets usually on Saturday and Sunday, but their Saturday meets are high school only. So if we were going to take our team, which has some 8th graders, middle school kids on it, we would have to go to the Sunday meet. And the thing with Louisville is those are huge meets. I mean, that is a full day affair because, again, there's not a lot of facilities in the state, and especially in that portion of the state, I'm sure that's the easiest place for teams to go that they can get to the easiest. So those are the meet venues. And like I said, so still kind of working through that. I will tell you that I believe our first meet is going to be the weekend of January 16th. So 16th, 17th, and 18th that weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is those dates. That is when I anticipate us opening our season for indoor, and we'll probably go to anywhere from we usually do 4 to 6 indoor meets. Again, just depends on how the schedule works out. I know we will at least do 3 in Mason County, and we'll do probably at least 1 somewhere else. So at minimum, we'll do 4. So we'll do 3 at Mason, and we'll either have 1 at Cincinnati, Center, or Louisville. But it just, like I said, I have to work on that and see how the schedule plays out. I think that's about all I have today. I just wanted to hit some of those highlights. I kind of welcome everybody back into the program, back into running season. Like I said, looking forward to this team and really working with some younger athletes as they're sort of young in their athletic careers and a little bit different from what I've done the last few years with some of the teams that I've had that have been pretty old or older, have older athletes. But we'll probably reach back out here in a few weeks with another update. But until then, thanks for tuning in.